So one of the hardest things for me to get my head around as a leadership coach has been my clients, right? Or coaches retiring or leaving coaching early. Oftentimes, many on the outside would say that they're leaving coaching prematurely, like at peak moments of their career. They've worked hard, they reached the top, and then they step away. Now, it's hard for me and my ego because I've often felt my job is to help them persevere, to push through the challenges of coaching and leadership, to always find fulfillment in the journey. And if I was doing a good job as a leadership coach, if I was doing a good job of supporting them, they would never want to quit. Right? And yet, I've started to realize in this work of coaching coaches that sometimes this is my job, to help them navigate the difficult question of whether or not to stay in coaching. And this is some of the most important work that I have done. And I'm proud of the coaches who have had the courage to step away from coaching, even if it's just for a year. Some of them have stepped away entirely. But these coaches, they have had the courage to say, hey, coaching does not define me as a person. It is something I do, but it's not who I am. Helping coaches to find the confidence that they can find new careers to provide value and be successful in other endeavors is a large part of this process, large part of this work that I do with them. And it has been a joy to help them find that joy and fulfillment as they step away. For some, they step into a totally different career. Some, they step away into something similar in sports. And for others, it's just a courage to step away from coaching for a while, like I mentioned. So either way, this is a complex, complicated topic. There's oftentimes no right or wrong answers. It's more about how we operate within the decisions that we make. And I know that coaches and athletes struggle with this topic of quitting. I've actually worked with some athletes as they transitioned out of their sport, professional athletes. And so that's been an interesting experience the last few years. But I have to say, this conversation, last week's episode with Lindsay, and this episode with Lindsay is just fantastic. And it's one that I'm going to be sharing for years to come because Lindsay Crouse, who's the author of The Case for Quitting, The Surprising Benefits of Opting Out, just does a brilliant job of unpacking why it's so hard to quit and ways to do it well. So if you haven't listened to the first part of the conversation, be sure to give that to listen. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Coaching Culture Podcast. My name is JP Nerman, executive coach and facilitator. I work with teams and leaders who are striving for high performance. And I started this podcast in 2017 to help others and myself grow as leaders and build better team cultures. So the best way to stay connected with us is to be a subscriber to our newsletter. The newsletter drops every week on Thursday. It's got the notes of the podcast. It's got my weekly article and culture building tool. The second best way, really the best of the best ways, is to join our community, TOC Coach. It's a really special community of coaches that are engaging daily. We've got live group coaching. We've got live trainings on building culture systems for their program. We've got our live discussion board where people are posting daily and we're responding to them. We've got our online courses in there, and we've got our resource library of just culture building tools. So join us at TOC Coach. You can do that. Austin will drop a link in the details of this episode for you to check it out. Enough about that. Let's jump into the second part of my conversation with Lindsay.
I just think about that story, and to your point, what a lot of athletes do is they grind till they burn out.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe this is oversimplification, but you look at the Michael Phelps story, right? Like,
yep.
Just absolute laying it all on the line all the time, burns out from it. What's he turn to? Drugs and alcohol, right? And as coaches or athletes, leaders, we go so hard. And I know this myself, right? You then have this rest day or that night off, and it's just like we fall into bad habits, unhealthy habits. We're not really recovering. Oh, I've earned it. I just need to shut down and just watch TV. And then afterwards, you just kind of feel yuck. And then you just kind of hop back in the treadmill and you just keep going at it because, well, that didn't feel good, but achieving and doing feels good and resting doesn't. But to your point, like if Bannister goes to the point there, maybe he doesn't like what he goes to spend time in nature with a friend, and he's still moving, right? Like all nice things for him to do to help him to recharge. So I think that was really unique in the book, how you talked about that, because I never thought about that. I think we go, I'm going to go as hard as I can. I absolutely do this on a daily basis. I'm going to go as hard as I can till I can't go anymore, and then I'll stop. And you're saying like that is going to lead to a lot of bad habits.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember too that a lot of the best athletes discover this the hard way. And then they learn. But they learn, or they cannot achieve their greatest goals. And I mean, we saw this in the past Olympics. The cross country skier Jessie Diggins. She talked about kind of pushing her body so far past illness that she collapsed at the finish line and was bedridden for 15 hours a day after a really important race. And she'd medaled, but it was a really important lesson for her, where she said, I'm glad to know that I can dig that deep, but I should not. And so it's like every time we push hard, we shouldn't write ourselves off as, like I go too hard, like I'm too extreme. We should just learn from all of these stories and really, again, learn about the importance of rest and fueling our goals. I think that is the only way to make the process of striving actually work.
Yeah, you say in the book, I decided rest was the same as decline. This is talking about your own personal experience. It didn't occur to me that bad work could destroy me the same way. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about this extreme work ethic that it leads to sometimes our downfall and our destruction.
Yeah. I mean, and I really learned that through my entire life. Like I went to Harvard. It was a very intense school, had wonderful classmates, wonderful teammates, but we really, really worked hard in many directions. And I did to the absolute extent that I could, partly because I wasn't as talented as some of my teammates. I was never the fastest person. I was never the smartest person. And so my way of dealing with that was to study all the time, to stay up till 4 a.m. working, and then to be really proud of myself for being at, the statue where we all met at 7 a.m. and be like ready for that run. But especially in hindsight, I do wonder how much better I could have done if I just gone to bed.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I see this a lot in elite sport, which coaches are struggling because they're presenting science. Hey, we're looking at the GPS metrics and how much you're running. They're trying to get athletes to tone down. In most elite sporting environments that I work in, athletes want more. One of their complaints is we're not working hard enough right now. Can you work us harder? Like these athletes, they have learned that pushing hard, it feels good, the endorphins from it. And so coaches and managers and management, they're having a hard time getting athletes to trust the data, to trust their body. This is so stinking important what you're talking about there. To the athlete that says, yeah, I get it. The body aspect, like how did you start to touch, get in touch with that as an athlete? Or how have you seen other athletes start to move from a place of the mindset has got to push through, the mind's telling me to keep going, but actually get them themselves to listen to their body more?
Yeah. So for me, the difference was I did hit my limit. Like I did get too injured to continue to go. I would just push and push and push. I mean, I write about this in the book. Like there was a time and I had I still have this like scar in the shape of a Batman signal on my shin where I would just ice my shin under my desk at work for hours until I actually gave myself frostbite. I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's like instead of stopping running, you're gonna ice your shin until the stress fracture miraculously heals. And I would just do little things like this all the time, where I would do these hop tests where you keep trying to figure out oh my God, is this broken bone better? No, it's not, but I'm going to go do a test run. This is just, it's very immature, frankly. It's really childish. It's not trusting the process. It's just kind of this, almost gluttonous approach to work where you're just assuming that the more you do, again, this more feeling, more is the magic. that comes from a place of insecurity, that the only way that I can be confident is to know that I worked to the max. And I definitely had that trap. And it was only by, or I definitely fell into that trap. It was really only by hitting that wall. And I didn't do it intentionally. Like, I didn't stop intentionally. It was just at some point I realized, oh, I haven't actually hit a starting line now in years. I don't even remember how many years it was, but it was like, I'd have friends introduce me as like a runner at a party, and I'd be like, am I? Like, I don't even run anymore. And that was actually really freeing. I think it let me kind of start over. It let me kind of actually stop trying, which for me is the key. For me, the key is to just kind of wipe the slate, stop pushing against this thing that isn't working, like stop persevering, frankly. And then gradually come back when you want to on your own terms in this like fun way, where I think fun is a really important word to use here. You have to enjoy what you're doing, particularly when it's not your job. I've always thought that Kira D'Amato, the athlete that I write about in the beginning of the book, she's always been, I think because we were kind of going through similar challenges at the same time. I didn't know who she was when I was going through it. I've found out who she was when she was blowing past me at the end of a marathon, when we were both kind of coming back to these like really exciting and really meaningful returns in our athletic careers, like in our 30s. So like later than we thought we were going to get faster. And I think the only way that we got these second lives in our sports was to stop and finally just accept that what we were trying to do wasn't working. You can't, I think that's another important thing here, is that you can't kind of hack quitting. You can't be like, oh, I'm sort of quitting, but I'm definitely going to come back. Like, I don't think that works. Research would show that it doesn't work either, because you're kind of still, your gears are still turning. It's not the full reset that you need. And so when you come back again, it's not going to feel fun, because it's not just your body that needs to get itself together. It's also your mind. You need that rest, and the mental rest, I think, is just as important as the physical rest. But when we finally did give up on these goals and just kind of like move on and do other things, both of us got a lot faster than we ever expected. And in Kira D'Amato's case, she wound up getting faster than a lot of people that had just kind of stayed on the ladder and done it the standard way the whole time. She wound up setting the national marathon record during the pandemic, which was a time when a lot of people were really struggling with disruptions to our routines. And I think it was because she'd already embraced disruption and kind of overcome that, and had just gotten a lot more confident and also enjoying it again. All of that makes a huge difference in terms of how you can come back after you let go.
Yeah, I think about some of the people I respect a lot. They have quit things, or I've really respected them for how they've quit and the reasons why they quit, right? Whether it's to quit something to spend more time with family. I think about the athlete Simone Biles. She quit the Olympics, got so much hate, but I think the reality is, at the end of the day, she not only got another 4 years of a career out of her, and had another great Olympics in the 2024 Olympics. She earned the real people's respect, right? She earned so many coaches and athletes, right? Yeah, there's the haters out there, but you saw someone make a really hard decision, get, hate for quitting. I put in that air quotes. She was making a really intelligent decision when looking at all the facts, and a courageous decision. There is that fear. There is that fear of what others will say. There's that fear of how we'll be perceived. And yet, you're talking about people and that are inspirational, and what has been the upside. And sometimes it's Ben Esther breaking a record. Sometimes it's Simone Biles having a comeback. And other times it's just the people that are most important to them that are getting to experience the benefits of them making that courageous decision to quit.
Yeah. And I think in Simone Biles' case, that was a very special situation where the spotlight effect did not apply to her. There was a real spotlight on her. It was not imagined. She did have to face a lot of criticism that was, so ill-placed, because and she says this as well, it wasn't really a decision. And I think that's what a lot of us in quitting kind of don't recognize, is that the failure has already happened. Like, your body is not going to do what you want it to do. You are just reacting wisely to the information that you already have. Like, she did she'd already tried some of the skills in a warm up in a practice, and it wasn't working. She knew it wasn't the right thing to keep going. I don't think you really have a choice in a lot of these situations, but it's actually just listening to the information that you have and relenting, as opposed to giving everything that we have. Like, athletes are not warriors, but we treat them that way. Like, was she supposed to martyr herself to these expectations? That's an absurd request of anybody, let alone one of the people who was the absolute master of her craft. But we expect that from people. We expect them to persevere at all costs often. And that is not the kind of mindset that leads to actual productivity or success in the end. Who's to say that she would have succeeded if she did keep going? I think it's also important to think about how we so often judge these decisions in hindsight, and it's a very unproductive way to do it. It's like, what if sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail, and that's just how it works. But how we actually view the decisions that fueled the move to either continue or to stop, we only make those in hindsight and off of the limited information that we had at the time. It's also important to remember there that we imagine when we judge ourselves for whether we quitted or whether we continued, we judge ourselves for making those decisions with the information that we have after the fact. And we forget, and which is absurd, like, the person didn't have the information about what would happen next when they were making that decision. But we forget that we actually now, moving forward, have the same information, which is very limited, and we can do with that what we want. But I think that's actually very empowering, because we tend to be happy with the decisions that we make in hindsight, and we'll be happy in the future as well. So we should stop berating ourselves in the moment for not wanting to continue or for trying to force ourselves to continue when we know we should stop. We're going to be fine with it in the end.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that, I saw in the book was you talk about how we have success and as an athlete or whatever, and it's like we just constantly move up the next position, whether it's in corporate culture, it's, or an athlete, moving up the ranks. And to not want the next position would be to be complacent, right? I've heard my wife say this around in her work, is like, oh, that person, they've just been in the same job for the last 5 years. They're totally content doing that job. And we say this around certain athletes. Well, if they don't, why wouldn't they? Like, they've got so much potential. When we talk about potential to move up the ranks, the same in coaching. It's why wouldn't you want to move up and achieve more and get to a higher level? Like, that's a competitor. It's this constant moving the goalpost back. You talk about this in the chapter, never enough. It's just never enough. Like, how can people that are in this, trap start to say, no, that is enough, without feeling like they're not a competitor?
I think it comes down to satisfaction, and we have to be able to define satisfaction in ways that are different from what the world will often tell us will be enough. Often that's defined as winning. And the problem with winning, as a lot of high achievers realize, is that the goalpost tends to keep moving. And so I think you really have to decide that at the outside of a challenge, like, what is going to be enough for you? I think that's also different when we think about it in the context of our actual lives. Obviously, like, if you're getting started on a marathon, for example, there's a finish line, but our lives don't have that. We can enter something called the hedonic treadmill, where what will actually make us happy and satisfied in a certain way will just continue to evolve in almost like a cyclical quality. And so I think you really have to you have to decide, like, it's not that I need to stop striving, but when will I stop being dissatisfied? When will I finally just be satisfied and be comfortable with what I have? And that can make you feel like you're not striving anymore. We have to accept that. But I think that duality between striving and satisfaction is one that we have to accept that it exists, or we're only going to fall on the side of dissatisfaction. And that's eventually kind of a miserable way to live your life. I think it often comes down to remembering why you start out on a challenge in the first place, or why you start doing whatever you do that you're ultimately trying to assess in the first place. For example, when I started running marathons, I did it in some ways because it represented freedom to me, but it also represented, this can be such a cliche word, but almost like it was almost empowering. Like I felt like I had control over it, and that I didn't need other people. Like other people couldn't tell me what to do. And also I wasn't winning, but I could continue to get better. And I could even define what better was for myself. And so those were the reasons why I started. And I think that those reasons can change, and how we even assess those reasons can change. The world will change how we assess those reasons. And so I think if you're starting to really grapple with these questions, and I think you already kind of know when you need to change your approach to something, like when you need to change your approach to enough. And a way to do that can just be to go back to revisiting the reasons why you started in the first place, rediscover those and re-embrace them, obviously through whatever new context that you're in, but to try to revisit these goals and the way that you're approaching these goals on your own terms, which is often, and that can often bring you back to that sort of creativity that got you into whatever you were doing in the first place.
There's something in all that you're sharing with me that I've kind of started to become aware of myself, and definitely some of the people that I work with, which is quitting is oftentimes scarier than persevering. Like the thought of quitting and what it says about us and how it might feel like it's going against our values or irresponsible. Quitting, like there's a lot of coaches I've worked with that are like, I really would love to get out of this profession, but I don't know how. I'm too afraid of how would I support myself? How would I pay for things like this? This is the only skill I have, so what advice would you have for someone that is like, no, I am not happy in what I'm doing, whether I'm an athlete, a coach, whatever it be. This is not what I want to be doing, but I don't know what else to do. What's the path there?
Yeah, I think if I were trying to decide if I was staying for the right reasons or whether I should think a little harder about stopping or leaving, I think you might want to flip that question and remember that staying is a decision too. And when we treat it that way, we often kind of know the answer a little better about whether we should stay, because staying, we know what our life is going to be in 5 years or 40 years. Quitting obviously involves a lot of uncertainty. And so I think you can ask yourself, not just should I quit, but should I stay? And then also, why am I staying? Am I staying because I'm afraid of leaving, or am I staying because I love what I'm doing and I do want this to be part of my life? And that answer we usually know, even if we haven't been asking it or telling ourselves that we know the answer. And we'll realize that we probably already have all the information that we need. And oftentimes, if we're asking these questions in the first place, it probably means that we need to leave. And so what is going to change to get us more information, to get us to actually leave? Probably nothing, because again, we already have that information. So we might as well just take the plunge and go.
Yeah, no, but that's really some powerful self-reflection, like the difference between want and need. And I think about from a running standpoint, I was like, oh, like, I used to always think about how we've been built to be able to run for days, right? Like on the hunt to go get food, right? And so if I'm capable to do that, I can go do that. I think we think about this endurance thing that we have, this natural ability to endure for the things that we need to feed ourselves, to feed our family. And yet I think about the thing that often leads to me persevering or pushing and really working hard now at this point in my life. It's often I feel like this responsibility to use the gifts that I've been given. Like I feel like very blessed for the life that I've been given, the things opportunities I've had, this platform. I just feel this immense responsibility. Like, oh, I have to use this to the max. And it's a really important thing that I'm taking from that personally is, okay, but is that a want or a need, right? And yes, I want to use these gifts, but really what I need to do is I just need to take care of my kids. I need to show up the best I possibly can for them. And then it's like, okay, how much can I do these wants? And I think this same in coaching is there is this, we really confuse need from want, like, I need to push hard. I need to be X, Y, and Z, to make us to be the best we can. Is that a need or is that a want? I love that as a metric.
So anytime you're thinking about why you're doing something, there's sort of this Venn diagram between wants, like that we want to do something, we want to achieve something, we want to have something. And then there's things that we need to have. That could be, for example, in the case of a job, an income. That could be in the case of, if you're training as an athlete, that could be the diet and the routine and the maybe the coach that you need to have. And the needs are often inextricable to the goal. Like we need to have those, but we can't conflate the wants on top of that. Like oftentimes you can separate those two things. And so, for example, in the case of work, work can mean a lot of different things. It can mean a job where you get income. But then it can also mean the work that you do in the rest of your life. I mean, I think when I'm training for a marathon, and I'm by no means a professional marathon runner, that's work. It's just not paid work. That's work that I want to do. It's also in some ways work that I need to do and that it keeps me healthy and fit and in certain cases sane. But I think we need to recognize that oftentimes a pursuit that we have is not going to give us all of those things at once, or it's certainly not going to give them it's not going to give all of those things to us in a satisfying way. And we can be okay with that. We can accept what we want and what we need are not always going to exist in the same person or the same pursuit, but they can exist in the same arena or the same kind of broader spectrum of our lives.
And yet when you look back on, last few years and the things that you have quit, what are you most proud of that you have quit in your life?
I mean, I've had a complicated relationship with quitting my whole life. That's why so much of my life has been like about pushing through boundaries and obstacles and just kind of embracing the challenge. And also, I've been driven by a strong belief that I need to finish what I start. But often it's when I have quit something that I have wound up kind of having a breakthrough to sort of like the next chapter of my life, I guess, so to speak. And I think one example would be when I was in my 20s, I really felt a lot of pressure to kind of get jobs, like not necessarily the best job, but any job, just to kind of, if I was at a cocktail party and people asked me what I did, what I was doing, I needed to have an answer to that. But then again, me being me, I stuck with those jobs over and over again. Well, really, it was only just two. But already by my mid-20s, I was starting to feel like I wasn't quite in the right lane or running the right race. I was working in global health. I was doing consulting for, traveling around the world. Like it was work I really cared about. I was working on child mortality and HIV/AIDS and tuberculosis. And this was important work, but oftentimes the actual work that I was doing was like writing a memo at 2 a.m. And, submitting it to the stakeholder. And it wasn't necessarily where I wanted to see myself in 40 years, or even maybe 5 years. I was sort of realizing that it wasn't the career that I wanted to have. And meanwhile, I got this opportunity to start over as an assistant at the New York Times. And that, in hindsight, I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer, but at the time it was really difficult. I felt like I was letting down this team that I was already on. The pros did not necessarily outweigh the cons. At the times, there was a lot of uncertainty. There were kind of like, it was a job where many people or most people got the job like right out of college because they knew somebody. It took me years to meet somebody to get that job. And then they were expected to go to grad school, but I didn't want to go to grad school at that stage. Like that would cost more money. It would be like setting myself back even more. So I knew if I did take this job, I was going to have to creatively find a way to be an exception. This is a long way of saying that. Oh, and there was a massive pay cut associated with it, and I didn't have much of a safety net to rely on. So it would be paycheck to paycheck still, but on a smaller paycheck. This is a long way of saying that quitting the one job that was pretty certain for a very uncertain alternative where there was a lot of upside, but a lot of uncertainty. That was not an easy choice for me to make. But I did, and I did it anyway. And in some ways, I was able to use the uncertainty as a motivator. Like, there was not going to be a ladder at the times for me to climb per se. Like there just wasn't a concrete way to rise. And in hindsight, I think that's actually how I wound up like driving a lot of my career there, was by trying to answer this question of like, how can we use perseverance to rise? That wound up being kind of like the North Star of my career there. And then I just left again for kind of like a new uncertain possibility. But it's like, I've done that before, and now I know I can do it again. So I think it's like, you just have to build this muscle around quitting. And that's really the only way that we can really grow.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we finish up here today?
I mean, I really think that our culture teaches us that quitting is a failure, that it means we didn't try hard enough, or that we are lazy, that we're taking the easy way out. And I really think when you reframe that into quitting as, or getting comfortable with quitting as developing our comfort with risk, and with making bold choices and actually being the deciders in our lives, we start to feel really differently about taking that action, because quitting really can be the first step to something better. It can be that pivot. It can be that rest. And we need rest. That's often the way that we get energized to do our best. Quitting can also just be that way to step back in order to catapult yourself further than you were going to go before. And I think that our culture doesn't teach us that. It doesn't even kind of cheer for us in the moment when we are making those decisions necessarily. And so it's really on us to learn when quitting is the right choice. And I welcome this audience and all these readers to do that with me. Thank you so much for having me. This was a wonderful conversation. I hope your audience enjoys the book, and look forward to hearing from people.
All right, that's it for my conversation with Lindsay. We will put a link in the details of this episode for you to check out her book. I cannot recommend it enough. It's out there now. And it is well worth the read. And if you found today's episode valuable, please go off and share it with others out there. And that might be struggling or interested in this. I think at every point, we as coaches are asked, is it worth it? Right? Is it worth all the sacrifice? Should I step away? And I don't think that when we ask that question, that we really give it the right amount of thought and reflection that is necessary. And one of the best ways to do that, one of the best ways to do, to spend time and be reflecting on that, is to do it with a coach, with a mentor, but someone that can hold space for you to listen and ask great questions. And that's one of the cool things about joining TOC Coach. When you join our premium level, you get a free one-to-one coaching call with an executive coach, and they will work with you on any challenge, any topic of your choice. So it's an incredible value within our coaches community. You can check out more about TOC Coach at tocculture.com. And thanks again for listening. Please be sure to subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and share this episode if you found it valuable.